being here. Kelly and I are joining forces for our first of hopefully many collaborations where we wanted to talk to you guys about some complementary elements that we both have, and that's how positivity can lead to productivity. So as far as kind of background goes, maybe Kelly, you can introduce yourself here momentarily, but I'm Kathy DeCocq. I am the founder of Savvy Maven, which is a consulting business where I help entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders with systems and processes. So I'm bringing the productivity side of the title to the books here. And Kelly, maybe give a quick introduction for yourself, please.
Sure, yeah. I'm Kelly Marshall. I'm in Buffalo, New York, and you can see Kristen's all bundled up down there too. She's nearby me. It's really cold here today. And I'm the founder of Nurtured Abundance, which is a coaching company for female entrepreneurs, and I help them with many things, but a base of money mindset so that they're no longer undercharging and over delivering or hiding from their money or blocking their ability to receive. And yeah, when we were talking about things, when Kathy and I were chit-chatting, we found that there was so many parallels in our work where my people, we might be working along on something and they get blocked with productivity, and her people might be working along on something and they get blocked with their money mindset. And so this was kind of birthed out of some conversations that we had and some fun that we've had. And we're really happy that you're here, and we'd love to hear from both of you. If you want to do a quick little introduction and just share with us. And can you guys see my screen, the presentation screen? Okay, good. So if you just share with us your name and the state that you live in, what you do, and what you'd hope to get out of this presentation.
I'll go.
Okay.
Well, I love what you both just shared, and I can totally see how your businesses support each other and cooperate. That's so much fun. So kudos, that's great. My name is Kristen Hadley, and I am a business coach for women, primarily women who are in animal-related industries. My history is as an animal communicator and a teacher of animal communication. And when it comes to, I'm loving this topic today because I have lots of ideas, and getting them all down onto paper and structured is really challenging for me. And Kelly, when you said people who tend to hide from their money, I have a very co-creative, fun, positive relationship with money. I tend to do just that. So it's interesting. That just popped in here as pretty important. And so I'm looking forward to all of what comes today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hi guys, I'm Melissa in sunny Arizona. I've got my window cracked open because it's a beautiful day out. Sorry to rub it in. I am currently doing zero. And the reason I say that is because I lost my job when the COVID crisis hit. And I've got lots of ideas and things that I'm interested in, but I'm having to start from scratch. And so positivity doesn't always come easily because although I have an idea, I don't have the motivation really to work as hard as I know that I can at this point. So this is a good place for me to start because I really feel like I am starting at square one, and I'll need all the help I can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Melissa. And hopefully, what we're bringing to the table today gives you some inspiration. So good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, well, let's dive in a little bit here and kind of set things up for, what we're going to be talking about today. So Kelly and I have put a framework together, and like we kind of said at the beginning of the call, that's quite complementary. I think there's, some very creative and spirit elements to it, as well as a little bit of structure. So we're kind of blending those two things together, and hopefully it's a very workable framework for you. But in order for us to kind of get started, I wanted to just set the stage and have you all think about, your current level of productivity. And this can be in anything. It doesn't have to be strictly in business. You can think of productivity in terms of, you know, stuff you have to get done around the house, or, you know, appointments that you need to make, or whatever it is. But if we think about, you know, what it is that we need to get done, the kind of the important thing for me, and we'll see it as the slides go through here, but the really important thing for me is to know when you're stuck, to know when you are at a place where you're like, oh boy, I need to kind of snap out of it. So you'll see that we've incorporated that as part of the framework. But here are some examples. So I don't know, Melissa, Kristen, if this resonates with you at all. I certainly resonate with a few of these because, you know, I find where, you know, there's stuff that I know I need to get done, but I just keep putting it off. And I have fantastic examples that I shared with Kelly where it's like, I will clean, you know, the bathroom before I do social media. Some days, you know, where you're just like, oh, like I just don't want to do it. But, you know, that's a way for you to know that maybe you're having a little bit of a rut in terms of productivity. You know, kind of the flip side, getting discouraged if you're feeling like you're putting things off and you kind of are, you know, coming down on yourself because you're like, man, I really need to do that social media post. And instead I chose to clean the bathroom, you know, so certainly some of that happens for me. And then there's always just kind of that thinking of like, man, I wish I could be doing more. I wish I could be more productive. So if any of those are resonating with you ladies, I think, you know, that's kind of where we're going to start this off, is just by getting in that mindset of like, okay, what does it look and feel like to maybe not be as productive as you could be? Does that all make sense?
Very much.
It does, and I can relate.
Right.
It's not, you know, just us kind of thinking of these things. There's plenty of research that's been done, and we'll send this out to you after the presentation is done, just so you have access to the goodies and the links that are in here. But it's not just, you know, thinking about productivity, but if you start behind that and think about your mindset and the level of positivity that you have, there's actually studies, and there's several, like I just picked two to throw on here just for ease of reading, but there's studies that's been done that indicate that the more positive your mindset is, the more productive you can become. And that's not just in an individual space, which is what the first bullet is covering, but it's also in a team space. So whether you have the opportunity to work by yourself or you have the opportunity to work on a team, having a positive mindset will make you more productive in both spaces.
Yeah.
Here is the framework, and I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to kind of talk through some of the details behind how you can turn positivity into productivity. Go for it, Kelly.
Yeah, so we're going to, in the next couple slides, we're going to walk through these various, the 3 steps of our framework. So just to give you an overview first, it's recognize, re-energize, and repeat. And so I'm just going to dive into them. So it starts with recognizing the self-talk, or maybe you're even recognizing like, man, I'm stuck, and like maybe you've gone and cleaned the bathroom and you're beating yourself up for that, or you know, there was the thing that you had on your to-do list this morning, you get to the end of the day and it's still on your to-do list, and hopefully you can catch it before you get to that point. But it's noticing that stuck frustration, beating yourself up, you know, just that meh feeling, like that staring at your computer, you know, for 10 minutes and without doing anything. Or, you know, I'll go to write. Writing is kind of my place. I get stuck, and if I'm not in the right place for it, I'll go to write and I delete it all again, you know, and I have to start over. And so that's a pattern I'll repeat, or just feeling that overall low energy. So we wanted to give you some examples of things that you could, you know, think of, like to recognize, I'm in that stuck place, I'm getting frustrated, and knowing that your productivity is not going to come from that place. You know, that's not the way to motivate ourselves to do something. It can really just spiral. And I'm introducing you to my artwork. This is my first time pulling in any of my artwork into a presentation like this. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. And really, when I thought about this and when we were talking about this, I really had that feeling, you know, when I'm in that place where I'm just spiraling down, it's not a place, that energy where I can beat myself up and I can, they talk about imposter syndrome, where we, that who am I to, when I'm stuck on an email, even if I could in the coaching moment with a client, maybe I could land it. I have all the confidence in the world. I just go into my intuition and I'm able to do it. When I go to write an email about that, let's say, I can get into that lack of confidence, that imposter syndrome. Who am I to, coach people on this? Or I'm really not good with, most of my clients would say, I'm really not good with money, or I might say, I'm not a good writer, and I can spiral through these negative self-talk, these negative messages, and just kind of dwell on them. And then I'm still sitting there at the end of the day with that to-do list, nothing that's moved me forward in my business, feeling bad about myself. And certainly that's not a place that's driving my high levels of productivity. And so I have in the workbook, there's a couple places that I'd love you to explore some of these statements for yourself. And I have it both linear. So if you don't want to color or, write in little bubbles, you can do it in this spreadsheet. But really the other two spreadsheets are just a repeat of this. We just wanted to give you a couple ways to present it to you so that you could pick the way that was the most productive for you, the most comfortable for you. But really think about or notice places that you're having this negative self-talk conversation with yourself. And it may not be the same things that you repeat all the time, or it might be. It might be stuff that just pops up out of the blue. But that first thing to do with that is kind of capture it, to become aware of when you're talking to yourself like that. Capture that in that moment, because that's your opportunity then to change that statement, to start the spiral back in the other direction. So if I can make this a little personal, if you guys are open to that, I think of what we talked about in the beginning. Oh, and Kristen came off mute. So are you welcoming that one? Are you there? Sure. So, and I even think about like, when you talked about where you hide from your money, that might turn into, oh, I'm just not good with money, or there might be a different statement that you use when you're talking to yourself about that. But recognizing that for what it is, which is just negative self-talk, that's not going to lead to you to the successful part of your business or to productivity in your business. This would be a great place to capture it. But does anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I have an example, and I also will say that like it's contagious. So for me, what comes up a lot is I don't know what to do next. Like whether it's putting together a marketing system, right? Or it's writing, putting together what's my next step in creating a sales funnel, or I don't know. And I don't have to know, but I feel like I have to know because and then that connects the dots. So what I wrote down is I don't know what to do next. I'm not as good at this as so-and-so is.
That's a big one.
And my uncertainty then starts to trickle over into other areas, because I realize, I am really confident about a lot of things, but once you start on that spiral, it gets contagious and everything starts to falter. And that's when I go do the dishes or wash the kitchen floor.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it can be a good thing to like kind of remove yourself from that situation, go do something that does kind of feel like something you're good at, but it's a matter of not staying there. It's having the tools then to bring yourself back in, maybe build up your positivity, which we'll talk about, so that you can still tackle the task at hand, right? Because you mentioned marketing, that's a huge one for me. And the bottom line is if we don't do that part, we're not making money in our business. So it's a critical piece. So we have to find a way to come back to it. And I love that you used your hand with the spiral too. And that's what I love that, because that's what I really meant with the visual. And it was funny, I was showing these to my mom when I first drew them, and we were having a conversation. I showed her the two, and like we were in the next conversation after, and she's like, well, I'm just not good with tech. And then she caught herself and she's like, oh, I'm spiraling down. So even if that makes you laugh a little bit, and you can think of these drawings, or, I hope that you'll take the workbook and color them in yourself and make them your own, and think about that, because that might be the thing that makes you chuckle a little and starts to go in the other direction. And we're certainly going to give you some resources for that too.
Yeah, the key is recognition though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the first step, is just, and so that's why I love everything that's happening on the drawings, because you've got the spiral imagery, you know, you've got these statements that are almost like starter statements, because I've had every one of those thoughts, and, you know, probably a dozen more. So I just love how it helps to start to call out and make you aware that, hey, you know, this, I'm thinking these things, and it's okay to think those things, right? I mean, everybody does, but the difference maker is catching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then before we move off of this one, I just, Melissa, if it's okay to share a little bit with you too. Yeah. Because I totally get how you're feeling. And especially, you know, this was something Kathy and I talked about in 2020, with the negativity being so high, and we look around and it's so easy to find negative self-talk, negative, you know, things about our country, negative things about every system we have in our country, you know, but there's also, you know, there's a positive, and we're going to flip into the positive self-talk. But, you know, just to have like kind of your story, it kind of started there, and then it's like, and then you know, trying to find the courage and all the little pieces, the productivity and the resourcefulness and all the things that are going to come with starting a business. I can certainly empathize with where you're at. And one of the biggest things being like, I don't even know where to start, or I have all these ideas. I don't know what one to pick. How do I know that I'm going to pick the right one? I don't know if that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if that resonates for you.
No, absolutely. It's interesting because in light of the COVID situation, I went from being a part of a business and feeling like I had found, this is what I am meant to do. I love this. This job is perfect for me. And then whoop, it went away. And so not only did it go away, but I went from busy and productive and feeling good about myself to flat out, I got nothing to do. And feeling like a big slug.
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking, well, you know, I can take the skills that I was using and just do something on my own. But then it's like telling myself, you've never started a business before. You don't know how to do this. Started in learning SEO and started myself on this self-paced course. It's supposed to be a 7-week course. I am halfway through, and it's taking me 4 months because I just don't like it. I'm not interested in it, but I know how important it is. So I just get real stuck. And imposter syndrome for sure. You know, who's gonna want my expertise? Do I even have expertise? I feel like I'm good at certain things, and I know that I can help people, but I don't have a huge resume. I don't have a nice portfolio. So then I think, you know, it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
And then wondering who's going to hire me in these times when extra money is scarce. So yeah, I can tick off all those boxes for sure.
So I guarantee we all can. And you know, being that you're touching on that entrepreneurial journey a little bit, I think that's a part, it kind of goes hand in hand with that. Like there is that part of that, who am I, especially if you're going to sell services versus a product, and you're really kind of selling your intellectual capital in a way. It brings up a lot of that. And so having tools and people that support you, tools like this that can support you and kind of help you spiral the other way. So maybe could we just like segue right over to that, and we'll kind of use your example, and then we'll go into the steps after. But it was funny because as it's hard when you're the person in that and you're the person spiraling, sometimes it helps to have an outside perspective hearing that. And there were some threads of what you said where, you know, the beauty that I heard in some of the things, and I'm not belittling your experience at all, because I can understand how challenging that is, but just to give you a start on your spiral back up, if I could. Like I heard you talk about like you were doing something that you loved. So that's kind of cool. There's an awareness right there. Like, you know, there's something there, that there's some thread about that. And it might not be that you have to do the exact same thing, but really think about what was the things I loved about that, and how can I bring that forward? And the same with like, I know I have a lot of skills to offer, and just, you know, when you're when you're cycling in that downward spiral and I don't know where to start, and this course is kind of boring, and who am I? And like you're cycling in that place, it's really hard then to recognize those skills that you do bring to the table. But just to kind of suspend that and be like, okay, I'm aware that I have those thoughts, but let me just play for a second. And what are those skills that you're really good at? And then maybe even looking for just to brainstorm and have fun with that, and think of like, how could those be used? You know, and really trying to choose to stay in the positive side on it and give yourself that time to practice that. You know, whenever you start to circle this way or spiral this way, just give yourself the space and start to spiral the other way. And if you're really struggling with that, then reach out, you know, to Kathy, or, you know, you and I can get connected and reach out to somebody and help us get you started on that spiral. Because I find that once I'm on that, I can keep going, you know. I had an experience this week, it was just yesterday. I was doing a thing where it was like, reflect again on 2020. And, you know, I see a lot of positives in 2020, but I don't, again, diminish the things that were really challenging. But there were a lot of blessings, like being home with my family, different pivots in business, different things that I've seen people do. But I hadn't really acknowledged too many of my own things. And so I was given an exercise yesterday to kind of write those things out. And the time somebody set a timer and there was just music. And as I kept writing, I was like, oh, I kind of forgot about that one. And I forgot about that one. And, you know, just kind of making that inventory of the good stuff can really help you create that spiral. And again, I don't want to act like it's always magic. I mean, I think this is a great tool and it is a starting point. But if you're ever struggling and can't find that spiral up, just reach out, you know. Get a little help. Yeah. So that's the goal of this one, is to really take the negative self-talk, the spiral down, the low vibe, as I call them, those low vibe feelings where it's just sucking our energy out and kind of getting, like, you can even just feel it as you think about it, as you talk about it, like you can feel that energy just pull down. And really purposely taking those, and even if you don't believe them initially, but rewriting them as positive statements, regardless, like just suspend that disbelief. So like, I don't know where to start is, I bet I can figure out the next best step. Or, you know, I may not know exactly what I'm going to do, but I could brainstorm for some fun ideas. Or, you know, if Kathy and I were talking a bit about that imposter syndrome, because that, I don't know anybody that hasn't fallen victim to that. And like who am I to offer that? And it's like, well, you know what? Oh, I'm pretty good at this and I'm pretty good at this, and making a little list of those things that you are good at, and just looking for opportunities to transform every low vibe statement that comes your way into its high vibe counterpart. And eventually over time, when you keep rewriting that and you keep taking, like you're in that process of that spiral down, you know, the first time you might spiral quite a ways, but then maybe it's a little further the next time and a little further the next time. If you keep practicing this, that as you're on your way down, you're like, oh, I know what's going on. And you give yourself that tool of like, listen, I'm choosing to be positive. I'm going to rewrite this statement. You know, it might sound silly at first, but over time, you're going to build that muscle memory and you're going to believe that. And you're going to find yourself able to spiral back up quicker and quicker. And in doing that, you can find that energy. All of a sudden, like even as we're saying it, and I'm kind of using this little finger thing, this little spiral, you kind of like, oh, your breath opens up a little bit. You like approach it in a different way than when you're spiraling down and just beating yourself up. And I think it's a fun place to play and see what you're able to produce at that point. And so again, it's, you know, I stuck in this, I choose to be positive. If that doesn't resonate for you, you can certainly come up with something else, or just even maybe it's just the visual of that spiral, you know, have that kind of flash in your mind, recite it if you need to a little bit. I choose to be positive, and then really take those, whatever negative self-talk statement has popped up in that moment, and replace it with something positive. Does anybody want to try one? Do you want to take one that maybe we haven't touched on and switch that over to a positive?
Well, I have an example that just popped up the other day.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, part of my skill set is writing as well. And somebody asked me if I would be interested in trading out some services if I would write their blog. And I sort of was bummed out, because while I would be happy to do that, I would love to like do it for real and make money at it. And this is part of the little business that I'm thinking of creating. And volunteering for that didn't seem all that appealing at the time, but hearing you speak, I'm thinking, no, that's a great opportunity to build my portfolio. And it's a good opportunity to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? What else are you doing? You know? So yeah, I'm feeling more positive about it.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to give you a little and to that too, because all of that is true. It's a good practice. It builds your portfolio. There's a lot of reasons to do it. If any part of it doesn't feel equitable, like where it might, after you do a few, like, or even after one where you're like, I don't want to be doing this for free, maybe think about putting something in there that feels more equitable so that there's some type of exchange, even if it's a testimonial or something. But you might even want to think of like, if it would feel good and feel appropriate, like getting some type of monetary exchange, because that's going to build up that money mindset piece too, and really support you and feel like, okay, this is something real. This is my business. Like once dollars exchange hands, all of a sudden things become a little bit more real. But go with what's comfortable with you. But I heard that little piece, and I suspect that even if you feel okay with it on like the first one, after a little bit, you're going to want the equitable piece in there. So if you can handle it earlier, it might be more supportive.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because it's a lot harder than people think it is. It takes a lot more time, and I could see myself giving up a lot in exchange for a little.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll think about that and incorporate that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just to
that's
tack
such a
on to
big
that.
skill. Sorry, Kathy. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Kelly. Finish your thought there.
I was just gonna say it's such a big skill, because like that's my struggle point. And so like for you to be like, I'm a good writer, I mean, that's huge. You know, I would even have that as a mantra, you know, because that's a very marketable skill, especially in working with entrepreneurs and the way that entrepreneurship has just boomed. And so people, coaches, and I mean, every service you can think of is starting to make money, but the thing they often struggle with is writing and marketing. And so if you have that skill set, even if for right now you wouldn't consider it marketing writing, but you can start off with writing, you know, blogs or emails or whatever that looks like. That's a huge marketable skill with a lot of clients out there.
That's exactly what I want to do. And so thank you. I'm feeling about things already.
That's awesome. Good. Yeah, there's tons of ways. I won't take up our time today, but I got like all these little ideas are popping into my head of places that you could get started where you wouldn't even have to build out everything on your own, but we'll save that for another time. But I'm excited about that. So yeah, there's a spiral up. I'm a good writer. I can write. Yeah. And Kristen, did you have one you wanted to share?
I rewrote all mine.
Good.
I had said, I don't know what to do next. And then I wrote, I have tons of resources at my fingertips. If I don't know, I've got tons of people who do.
Mm-hmm.
And not even live resources, just materials that can tell me. I'm uncertain. Yep. But I do know what I want it to look like. So that is really, that's an anchor for me, you know, and I'm not as good at such and such as so-and-so is, but I'm getting better at blank by taking imperfect action. And then I'm in a better place now than I was 30 days ago or 6 days ago or a year ago or whatever. And that is really true, always. And that's a total spiral up in my life. You know, even when the bottom feels like it's falling out, I can look at that and say, no, I really am in a better place than I was.
Yeah. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, I think of what you said. You had one of them, Kristen, that was you've got resources available to you. I think of it like the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like You've
Call
got
a
all these
friend.
lifelines, you know, like phone a friend, like whatever, right? Like I have a very small, you know, like a handful of people, and Melissa's one of them, where it's like, I need to talk something through. I don't know what to do. And, you know, it's somebody that you can just text and they're make themselves available to you to just talk something through. And that, that concept works so well for me, just to get somebody else's perspective and their encouragement. And, you know, they're like, you've totally got this. Like, I use that quite a bit. So I like that you had that in there as one of your positive statements.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kathy.
Love it. So in the, on the workbook, I don't have it on this page, but in the workbook, there's an opportunity to write down, whenever I start to think blank. So, you know, Melissa, I'm sorry, I'm going to use your example, but it's like, whenever I start to think nobody's going to want to hire me, I know it's not true, because what I know is true is many people struggle with writing, or many people would love to have somebody they could pay to help them with writing, you know, and just reframing that statement. And then that can be, especially if that's a statement you keep repeating to yourself, this low vibe place where when you're spiraling down, it's the thing that repeats in your head. If you can use this like a mantra, whenever I start to think, oh, nobody wants to hire me, you know, and go through that, I know it's not true, and let that spiral you back up. That can be how you can create your own mantra that feels a little more solid than just, I choose to be positive. You know, we know that that's an overall mindset, but this mantra is going to be really deeply connected to you and whatever statements you're telling yourself. And we can get that switch from that low vibe, that negative self-talk, into that positive self-talk.
Yeah, I see that.
Cool. Yay. And then we just wanted to leave this space here too, to celebrate the positive. So, you know, in addition to these statements, it's like, you know, really recognizing those things that are already happening, or like I was talking about the blessings in 2020 for me, or even like, you know, I'll just keep going on my marketing thing. Like, I've learned, even if I don't feel like everything's where I want to be, like I've learned so much this year when it comes to that. And I've made great connections, and, you know, I could come up with a little list of things that I really want to celebrate, either specifically around that topic I maybe am feeling stuck about, or even just in general, because when we just kind of reflect on the things that are going well in our area, in any area of our life, right, it can be that thing that really supports that spiral. So we just wanted to create that little space to celebrate that for you, because we think that's really important too. So does that all make sense? Does that feel good so far? All right, Kathy. This is where Kathy's genius takes over again.
Well, thanks. I'm the systems part of this, so I'm just saying repeat. So the first two steps: recognize, re-energize yourself, and repeat. And this can be what, you know, it's a system. If you are doing something on a consistent basis, it's considered a system. So what you have to kind of feel out for yourself, and there's no wrong answer, is just a checkpoint. Just, is it at the beginning of your day, you know, kind of when you're first waking up, is that the best time for you to kind of check in and see how you're feeling? Is it the end of the day? Is it lunchtime? Like, is it once a week? Like, is it Monday? Is it Friday? Like, there's all these options. There's no rule book. You can set this up whatever works best for you. But the idea here is to make sure that you have at least once a week some kind of check-in with yourself that says, do you notice any patterns? So one of my big things is patterns, because you can start to recognize, if you keep like a little journal or something like that, just at your desk. It could be a sticky note, like it doesn't have to be fancy, just where it's like you used your re-energize sheet. Okay, why did that happen? And just a quick note about what were you thinking about and what day and time was it, or something. Like, I mean, it doesn't even have to get that specific, but the idea is that you'll start to recognize patterns, and that's going to help you then to know when you're going into the downward spiral and catch it at the top. So then it's easier to spiral back up. You're not having to go, like, come from so far down in your spiral to get back upwards. So that's what this one is really about, is checking in and then creating some kind of routine for yourself so that you can set yourself up for success and have a positive mindset from the get-go. Or it could be the end of day. Like, again, it's whatever works best for you. Like, when I first wake up in the morning, I'm a big snooze button abuser. So I use my snooze button for meditating. And it's really like just breathing in 4 and breathing out the count of 6. And then that kind of gets me, like, I do 5 or 6 reps of that. And then now I'm like, oh, okay, what do I have going on today? Start kind of thinking about what the day is shaping up to be like. And just like, you know, like today, like, I am going to nail this. This is going to be such a great talk. Kelly and I are so awesome together. Like, you just kind of set yourself up, and then what you think about manifests itself, right? So now I have that positive attitude, and that set from the get-go. So now I am so jazzed about this thing. I mean, you guys should have seen me. I was like working the lighting, like, which outfit am I going to wear? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. But it's because I had that little thought process up front, and it didn't take 2 hours. It took 2 minutes to just kind of think through, how's that going to go? And that's what, like, very high performing athletes use this, like Russell Wilson. If you guys watch football at all, you guys are probably Bills fans. I know, Melissa, you're a Cowboys fan. But, you know, if you're like Russell Wilson says that he gets through all these high pressure situations because he visualizes a positive outcome. So we're just employing that same technique that Olympians use, that professional athletes use, to get you to your highest performing self. So that's kind of like, I don't know, the spiral on steroids or spiral squared. I'm not sure. It's something, but
I'll have to draw a picture of that one too.
It's like 2 spirals. I don't know, but you'll come up with it, because your creativity is just off the charts. But like, if you get yourself to where you recognize you're starting to spiral down, you catch it sooner, you spend more time in a positive, a high vibe space, you're going to be more productive, and that's just going to snowball. Like Kristen, you said earlier, it's, you know, there's a contagiousness about that mindset. It's equally as contagious, if not more so, for a positive mindset. Mm-hmm. So think about, you know, a system that's going to work for you. And system, I know it sounds fancy, but it's really just like, do you check in with yourself once a week, once a day, morning, afternoon, night, whatever, and just walk through how things are going to go and have that positive mindset, so it becomes your default instead of the spiral downward, if that makes sense. Does that resonate with you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that. I love that you make it so simple to create a process that's going to keep you successful, and you don't get caught up in you need this, you know, this tech solution or this, you know, fancy stuff. You say it can be just simple, make it work for you. I love that.
Yeah, it has to be that way, because if it gets too fancy, then it's overkill, and it's too hard to maintain. Yeah, Kristen, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I wanted to say, Kathy, I appreciate that so much, because I tend to make everything like that system-wise harder than it has to be. And I'm smiling inside and outside here as you're talking about systems and patterns, and I can feel that is just so naturally you. And I'm looking at your backdrop, and you've got a pattern. It's just, you are a system. You are the talking pattern system, and I believe you.
Thank you. This is my favorite backdrop in the house. I wonder why.
It just goes. And so everything is so cohesive about you and what you're saying. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Very cool. Well, and her hair's just high vibe to begin with. So she does that. Like, if I had my hair that high vibe, that would just start me off on a happy spiral. I love it.
Each day getting it to this space is pretty fun, and it just does what it wants. So.
I love it. So that really wraps it up for us, but we want to make sure you guys know that we are here for you. You know, we're both here for you. We're committed to this. You know, we want to make this easier for you. We want to support everybody, but especially women business owners, at least from my perspective,
for sure.
You know, to really feel supported in this, and know that you're never alone in this. You know, we all have our version of those spirals, but the more that I think that we can support each other and get in community where we're spiraling back up, the better off we'll all be. So we've got all our contact information there, and we would love to to connect with you further.